What's up, and welcome to another edition of the Cover 2 Recap. I'm BruinSportsReport.com publisher Edward Lewis. As always, this is Ryan Karchi, the UCLA beat writer for the OC Register. We're here tonight once again at CSU San Bernardino, where UCLA just wrapped up its fourth day of fall camp. Let's dive right into the news and notes, Ryan. Cameron Griffin, his shoulder looks to be more serious than we originally thought. Jim Morris said it doesn't look very good, but they'll get the final word from doctors this weekend. Zach Whitley left today with what looked like concussion-like symptoms. They took away his helmet. They kind of babied him on the sidelines, made sure everything was okay, but he did not look like he was moving well after practice. Another couple guys, Thomas Duarte missed today with a hamstring. He was kind of limited. Jordan James was limited with a hamstring. Obviously, Simon Goins and Connor McDermott were still out. Just a lot of little minor setbacks here and there. Nothing too serious, so Jim said everything should be all right. But I wanted to get into that Jordan James topic because with him out, we saw a lot of different running backs in and out of the lineup, particularly Paul Perkins. Tell me what you saw from the running back group today.
You know, I was like Paul Perkins last year. I think he showed kind of a degree of vision and an understanding of holes that maybe, the other running backs on the roster didn't. He also, had those skills catching the ball out of the backfield. And I think today we saw a lot of that. We also saw a little bit better vision. I think he's improved his balance. He's gained a little bit of weight. And he's just really got a better understanding of the offense. And he broke off a few nice runs today that I think, you look at Jordan James and you see that, he was looked over his ankle injury to start camp. But at the same time, he's never really given that X factor that this offense kind of needed. And, Paul Perkins almost seems like he's ready to step into that role. I know, he told us a few days ago that none of them have any idea, who's going to get the carries. And obviously there's still a lot of time. We haven't even been in pads yet. But I think it's something that, Noel Mazzoni said yesterday that this is as happy as he's been with the running backs. And he's, not happy with any other group as much as he is with that one. So I think Paul Perkins has a big deal to do with that. And, the other guys, Stephen Manfro had a big day. I think Craig Lee has shown some flashes. The other guys have looked better too. So, it looks like they may actually have a leading rusher who's a running back this year.
Yeah, and Paul may not be the sexiest or the flashiest guy on the field, but he had a couple runs and a couple big runs where it's just he's slithery, I guess. He's like a snake out there. He's never going to burn you down the sidelines like Jordan James can or whatever, and I think that's going to be always the knock on him. But he's kind of that all-purpose back that I think could start. Also, Stephen Manfro's blocking should probably be mentioned in here. He had one hit where he laid out kind of Jayon Brown in pass rushing drills and caught him right under the chin, and Jayon looked like he had just been punched in the mouth. So they had running backs had a pretty good day today with Jordan James out. We got to see a lot of those guys.
I thought it was interesting, too. I know Jim Mora talked a lot about Craig Lee today. Said he was still raw, but, he's improving. He looked a little bit better in pass blocking. He still struggled a little bit. But he specifically mentioned that he doesn't necessarily have the instincts to find the hole that, say, Paul Perkins does. And that was something I noticed about Perkins. It was especially good today. But with Lee, it's pretty clear that he's the most talented runner on this team. He's the guy who would be that big play threat that they've never really had. But it seems like at this point that Perkins has been the best running back in camp. But still, there's a ton of time left.
He's got a couple ways to go, Craig Lee does. Let's get into top performers. Two guys that stood out for you today were who?
First, I thought Najee Torin, I don't know if we mentioned it earlier, but Alex Redmond had to sit out, this practice because of, heat-related issues. But that paved the way for Najee Torin to take some reps. And I thought he looked great. I honestly, Scott Quessenberry was the other guy. I thought Najee Torin looked even better than him. He still has to gain some weight, gain some strength. He's a young guy. Obviously, he just came in the spring. But he's got this kind of mauler mentality that I think fits almost exactly what, O-line coach Adrian Clem wants to do and wants to have on the interior to, have these physical guys to pave the way for a better run game. I think Najee's very much in that discussion to potentially beat out Quessenberry and start alongside Redmond and Brendel. And, at this point, today he definitely showed that. I know the other guy I was thinking about, Eldridge Massington, they moved him to the outside today. He's gotten a lot of reps there, and they've kind of experimented with Jordan Payton at the Y, which I think is an interesting, combination. A lot of skilled receivers on the field at one time, a lot of speed. I think his speed has definitely come back a little bit more than it did last year, and he's just been more confident, catching the ball. You see he's not necessarily thinking as much as he was last season. So him and Brett very clearly have a good bond, and I think it's definitely paid dividends so far.
Eldridge was the only guy I've seen all week beat Ishmael Adams, and he beat him consistently today, so he had a big day. My two guys were Malcolm Bunch, first and foremost. I went over to watch the offensive line drills, and when I got there, the first rep that he took, he pancaked a walk-on about 10 yards down the field and just laid him out, and Clem just smiled and laughed like it was normal. He's had a heck of a camp. He looks like a completely different guy than back in the spring. He didn't look like he could ever play tackle back in the spring. He was kind of overweight. He had slow feet. He wasn't moving very well. He was out of shape. He comes in this camp. He's down about 30 pounds, 20 pounds. He's got feet are a little bit better, but he's also got this kind of moxie and poise now that he's, okay, I am the fifth-year senior. I am the leader, as Jake Brendel called him, a 28-year-old man out here, as Eddie Vanderdoes called him, the dad strength. So he's out here, and he's performing really well. He got injured towards the end of practice, but it doesn't look like anything serious. He might be held out tomorrow, but it's not anything to worry about. My other guy is Miles Jack. Huge surprise, right? Miles, though, had a stretch of plays I just felt like were out of this world. The first was he went on a blitz and buried Scott Quisenberry. Just plowed him. And afterwards, Jeff Olver gave him a hug and a handshake. Well, next play, he tips a swing pass, that's going to 30 yards to the sideline. He got up in the air at the line of scrimmage and tipped it down. And then in one-on-ones, he covered Devin Fuller, which cornerbacks can't even do. So I thought he had a fantastic day. Just great day all around for the superstar linebacker. That'll do it for our coverage of UCLA's fourth day of fall camp. As always, you can follow Ryan's coverage of UCLA on Twitter at Ryan_Karchi, and you can follow me on Twitter at EdwardLewisBSR. Until the next time, thanks for tuning in to the Cover 2 Recap.